Good afternoon, I'm Vashon Brown with the Midday News. Special welcome if you're watching on onespotmedia.com. I remind as well that you can watch TVJ live by downloading our One Spot Media app in the Google Play Store or the App Store. That's the number 1 followed by the words Spot Media. A radical shakeup has started at the Firearm Licensing Authority FLA, which will see applicants for firearm licenses coming under greater scrutiny. Newly appointed CEO of the FLA, Shane Dalling, told our news center that he will be implementing measures for current license holders to explain the use of bullets that were issued to them.
Prevent persons, license holders, from discharging ammunition at Christmas Eve celebrations, dances, funerals, as well as anniversary and what persons deem night. So every single bullet that is issued to a license holder will have to now be accounted for.
The FLA head adds that there will also be a re-examination of certain categories of firearm licenses.
A review of all the licenses that were issued under the old system, that is the system whereby the police were issuing the licenses, that is before the FLA came into being. So we'll be doing a review of all those applicants to ensure that they comply with our regulation, as well as to ensure that they still remain fit and proper persons to have the firearm.
And speaking of firearm, the police seized 2 firearms last night in the community of Sunderland, St. James. Reports indicated that the police were patrolling the area around 10 o'clock when a shop was searched during a routine check. Lawmen discovered a Glock and a rifle with 1,082 rounds of ammunition. A man was reportedly seen running from the shop. However, the police were unable to apprehend him. No arrests have been made in connection with the seizure. 27-year-old Ophelia Baker, who was severely injured during an arson attack at her house at Stonefield in Barbary Hall, St. Elizabeth on April 29, has died. Miss Baker died at the Kingston Public Hospital last night. Her father, 49-year-old Alan Baker, who suffered 90% burns to his body, succumbed to his injuries on May 3 at the University Hospital of the West Indies. A third victim, Miss Baker's 14-year-old sister, received minor burns in the incident. 40-year-old Alvin Francis of Black River, St. Elizabeth, was accused of pouring a corrosive substance on Mr. Baker and his daughter, with whom he had an estranged relationship, before setting the house ablaze. Mr. Francis was later found dead some distance away from the house with chop wounds. The Clarendon police are still on the hunt for those responsible for a double murder in Springfield 2 days ago. It happened about 6:45 Wednesday evening. 2 men were in front of a shop when a white Probox motorcar drove up and the men fired shots. 37-year-old Rodney Lindsay from Old Harbour and Springfield and the 41-year-old Ian Morris of an Old Harbour address were shot. They were rushed to hospital but were pronounced dead on arrival. And still in Clarendon, 3 persons were shot last night in Johnson Lane in Maypen. 2 of the persons succumbed to their injuries. Reports indicate that at around 9 p.m., the victims were inside a house when gunmen opened fire on the premises. Residents alerted the police, and upon entering the house, a man was discovered suffering from gunshot wounds. He was taken to the hospital and admitted in serious but stable condition. This morning, lawmen revisited the crime scene and discovered the body of a victim on a dirt track near the house. After conducting further searches in the surrounding areas, the second body was discovered in nearby bushes. No arrests have been made in connection to the shootings. Police are still at the house processing the scene. A curfew has been imposed in a section of the St. Catherine North Police Division. It will remain in effect until 6 o'clock this evening. The boundaries of the curfew are north along the Twickenham Park Main Road, at the intersection with Burke Road to the football field at the eastern boundary, east along an imaginary line about 300 meters from the football field to the Fidco factory, south along an imaginary line running parallel to the Spanish Town bypass, about 400 meters from the Fidco factory to the banks of the Rio Cobre, and west along the banks of the Rio Cobre, about 350 meters from the southern boundary to the intersection with Burke Road. Now, persons within the boundaries are required to remain within their premises unless authorized in writing by the member of the Jamaica Constabulary Force who is in charge of enforcing the curfew. The National Integrity Action, with funding from the United States Agency for International Development, USAID, recently concluded 6 days of intensive training sessions to improve Jamaica's anti-gang strategy. The move is part of the fight to dismantle gangs, which continue to drive up the country's crime figures and negatively impact the economy. TVJ's Krista Campbell reports.
Local and international experts in the field of security all in one place. An initiative of the National Integrity Action NIA and the USAID to help make greater inroads in dismantling gangs in Jamaica.
Crime in Jamaica has gobbled up roughly 4%, or $61.8 billion of the country's gross domestic earnings in 2014. It also estimated in 2014 there was a revenue loss of 0.10% of GDP due to incarceration.
Well over 200 gangs currently operating in Jamaica, some more prominent than others. Acting Deputy Police Commissioner Elan Powell says the One Order and Klansman gangs operating in Spanish Town in Catherine are believed responsible for over 1,000 deaths. More than one unit of the Jamaica Constabulary Force have direct responsibility for tackling gangs, but there are challenges.
We have too few judges, too few prosecutors, too few courthouses. So again, we're having significant problems. So even though we have that number in court, we have only had 2 convictions. As a matter of fact, we have only had 2 cases that have concluded.
Executive Director of the NIA, Professor Trevor Monroe, says part of the problem also has to do with the links between gangs, politicians, and the police.
To take control of the problem of gangs in Jamaica, we must have those higher levels of conviction. In our small society, let us not fool ourselves. Many people know everything about the gangsters and their connections. But still we can't convict them.
So the 6-day seminar was designed to better equip Jamaican police in fighting gangs by, among other things, improving intelligence and evidence gathering to better secure convictions against gangsters. Krista Campbell, TVJ News.
The narcotics police are probing a major cocaine bust at Kingston Freeport Terminal. 64 kilograms of cocaine with a street value of almost $80 million was seized in containers at the facility. Detectives from the Narcotics Division reported that they were conducting operations along with members of the contraband enforcement team of the Jamaican Customs Agency. They were targeting containers shipped from Guyana and Suriname. During the search of 2 containers shipped from Guyana, a traveling bag was found in each container. They contained 43 parcels with cocaine. A search was also conducted on containers from Suriname. 2 containers shipped from Suriname. Cocaine was also detected in bags in the containers. The 2 local authorities in St. Catherine say work has been ongoing to keep the parish prepared for the hurricane season. St. Catherine is one of the most vulnerable parishes as it relates to flooding, and following recent heavy rains, the Spanish Town mayor says blocked drains are still being cleared. However, Norman Scott stressed that preparation is not prevention.
See the kind of rain that is falling nowadays. Don't care the amount of drain cleaning you do, it is going to not be able to prevent the kind of flooding that are happening in recent time.
Along the Port Ennis main road, heading towards Bayside, that is one of our main area that we are focusing on, and also in Greater Portmore and Gregory Park area. So we have started some drain cleaning. Those earth drain, is covered with a lot of vegetation, including plastic bottles and foam cups, so we are moving all of those from those drains.
TVJ News caught up with the 2 mayors at this week's official groundbreaking for a new municipal corporation building in Portmore. Meanwhile, the authorities in Montego Bay St. James say hurricane preparations are well underway with special attention to drains and gullies which are prone to flooding. Mayor Homer Davis says the parish has had some practice with recent flood events.
We have seen some of the areas that came under challenge because the drains were either blocked or in some instances the drains were inadequate. We intend to address as many of those drains as possible.
The North Gully We undertook some cleaning works in last month, and we'll be monitoring the situation. And as the need arises, those two are critical drains, we'll devote attention to those areas.
The mayor says special attention is also being placed on overhanging trees.
As you are aware, just recently out by the old amphitheater, where that huge cotton tree came down, and it brought down with it some high tension electrical wires, and the city was out of power for nearly a whole day.
And it's time now for Fact or Fiction feature. Fact or Fiction. Radio Jamaica Limited started at John Grinnon's home at 2 Seaview Avenue, St. Andrew, and had only one broadcast per week lasting 1 hour. And finally this afternoon, the answer to our Fact or Fiction feature. Fact or Fiction, we asked. Radio Jamaica Limited started at John Grinnon's home at 2 Seaview Avenue, St. Andrew, and had only one broadcast per week lasting 1 hour. Well, it's a fact. Radio Jamaica Limited was established in 1939 and was operated by a local ham operator named John Grinnon. Initially, there was one broadcast per week lasting 1 hour, but after May 1, 1940, a small staff was employed and the daily broadcasts began on June 3, 1940. Over time, the station improved with each broadcast and began offering news, information, and live performances of local artists. A license was granted in 1949 to the Jamaica Broadcasting Company. Now, this license gave the company the right to operate regular broadcasting services, and the Jamaica Broadcasting Company took over the operations on May 1, 1950. Commercial broadcasting began on July 9, 1950, using the call sign Radio Jamaica and the Rediffusion Network, and the well-known RJR was born. And that's the Midday News. I'm Vashon Brown. Don't forget to join us at 7 for Primetime News Package. On behalf of the news, sports, and production teams, good afternoon and have a great weekend.